He's an introvert, interviewing strangers from the internet, knocking down the walls of his comfort zone, one conversation at a time. This is the Gary Cantrell Podcast.
The Gary Cantrell Podcast, June the 24th, 2020. How's it going, everybody? I'm so glad that you're here with me today. And on the show today, I'm going to be talking with John from T2 Nutrition and Wellness. But before we get him on, I'm going to tell you about my Patreon podcast producers. Caitlin at Caitlin Elise put 3 Y's in her name 3 times. As awesome. Vanessa at Vanessa Ray's Journey. She's having a baby, man. I'm so excited. Congratulations, Vanessa. And Amanda at Mutts_and_Miles. These awesome people helping to support the show. And if you want to join the Patreon fam, it's patreon.com/Gary Cantrell. And you might say to yourself, Gary, what do you even get with a Patreon subscription? It's very simple. You're going to get this show 5 days before the general public. 5 days. It's a higher quality MP3, 192 kbps if you know all that high-tech stuff. You also get 25% off the Hard Work Always Wins merch store. And so much more coming down the road, folks. So join me if you will, patreon.com/Gary Cantrell. And of course, if you want to support this show for absolutely free 99, you can head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Tell people, what does the show do for you? Why do you love it? Why should they listen? These reviews do far more than you'll ever know, and they will help the show in a big, big way. And that's the best way to support this show with no cost to you. All right, let's get this show started, everybody. John is my guest today. He runs T2 Nutrition and Wellness. He's a podcaster. He's a health and wellness coach. He hosts the Jacked Up podcast. He's a hell of a guy. And this podcast with John starts now. Now I'm going to hit the record button on my Roadcaster. Now we're ready. Dude, this is great. So,
hey, at least we didn't record a half hour of the podcast, and then it's like, oh no, I didn't record it.
this is a true story. So yesterday I thought was the podcast, and then now today I didn't hit record. You know, I've been doing this shit for 13 years. You would think I'd figure this out by now.
No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Because you're always going to forget something. It never fails.
Always.
Yep.
So you're calling me tonight from West Virginia.
Yes, sir.
All right, dude. So we're actually not too far. I'm in Northern Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. And
okay, so you're in the whole D.C. metro area then.
Unfortunately.
Yep. I know it well.
Oh man, it's the traffic here is the one thing that that's the one thing that drives me the nuts. Like I could probably deal with just about everything else. Like most of the people I've encountered are really nice. And the job is good, the money is okay, and so it's just the traffic. It's this commute. I have like a hour and a half commute. What's your commute look like?
From my bedroom to my office downstairs.
That's the joke I was looking for. So you're actually in the business for yourself. I like that. We can get into a lot of avenues there.
I have a part-time job because my business being a nutritionist and a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Obviously with everything hit with COVID, a lot of my clients had to suspend services because, a lot of people are out of work, and I totally get that because I'm a luxury to a lot of people.
Right.
So, but I mean, it's like I got the podcast thing that I do, and I do some social media management work. I do some video production work. So I got my fingers in a few pies. So it keeps me busy anyway.
I love that, man. This is a business that I've been trying to get into for so long, more so the creation part of it and even some editing and stuff like that. Right. I just love to tinker with stuff, editing audio, editing video. I love all this stuff. You're in that world, so I think we're going to get along very well here.
Absolutely.
But I guess to finish off, so on West Virginia, were you born and raised there?
No. I was actually born in New York.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was born in Binghamton, New York, just across the border. But I swear my dad was part gypsy because I think by the time I was 13, I lived on every state in the East Coast but Maine.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was military or he had to move or anything like that. It's just like, okay, we've been here long enough, time to go.
Yeah, I only Virginia and California are the two states that I've bounced back and forth between when I was younger. But there's kind of that thing about getting up and going, and you're like, okay, I've gotten used to this place. Now it's time to go to this place. But was a lot of that done when you were really young? Do you remember a lot of it?
Yeah. From once we hit West Virginia when I was 13, we pretty much lived here throughout. Well, I lived clear up to my adulthood and then a number of years here. I moved away once. I moved back up to New York for a period of time,
Right.
and then made a pit stop in Pennsylvania for a year or two. But then I came back to West Virginia because by this time my kids were adults and everything, and they were all here, and I had grandkids now. So moved back to West Virginia, bought a house, and made a home.
But obviously you like it there. There's something about it that really keeps you there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I guess it was because it was the place that I associated with because it was the place I spent the most time.
Yeah.
It's the only place out of all of the other states and whatnot that I've been in that felt like home.
Hey, you can't go wrong there, man. I mean, I've
Nah.
been here pretty much all my life except for a couple of stints in California, but I'm telling you right now, this traffic has got me wanting to get out of here. I don't know if you've ever been down south to Charleston, South Carolina. I love this place. This is where I want to ultimately end up. It's beautiful down there, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. A lot of the Carolinas were really nice. You get into some of the big cities and you got the same traffic issues that you do down in Northern Virginia, but for the most part, it's beautiful country.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. The people are great. The food is great, although sometimes we need to watch out for that food because especially down south, they'll slip in some good stuff there. Get you hooked, my friend. But now you mentioned, being a trainer, nutritionist, and all this good stuff. I mean, but obviously you've got a story that ties into that, going back to childhood where you've dealt with being overweight. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you get to the point where you're getting overweight? I hear from a lot of people, I was at home too much, or I ate too much, or there's a combination of things. What was it for you?
With me, actually, I was not an overweight kid. I was always a big kid.
Right.
I was wearing my dad's clothes by the time I was 13. But now granted, he was only 5'2" and I'm 6'2". So
yeah.
I don't know if we got free milk or what. I'm not sure what happened there, and I really don't care.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I didn't have problems with my weight or anything when I was young,
right.
even when I was a teenager and a young adult. But as I got older, I just didn't pay any attention to what I ate. Whatever I wanted to shove into my face, whether it was an entire pizza or, sitting down eating 2 or 3 Big Macs and a milkshake or something like that. I just started doing it. And over time, the weight caught up to me no matter how active I was. I mean, back in those days when I had my rock bottom moment in 2007, I worked as a mechanic.
Yeah.
I worked about 60 hours a week. So I was nonstop on my feet running. When I wasn't at work, I was very active. I was always outdoors fishing, playing with my kids, doing whatever. But the weight still came on.
Yeah. What would you say is one of my favorite things to ask is like, what was your kind of like go-to like meal? You mentioned pizza and Big Macs and all these things. What was like the one constant?
Oh, well, I can tell you every day for lunch, because the Midas shop that I worked at in Winchester, Virginia, actually.
Oh, Winchester.
They had a pizza shop right next door and a McDonald's across the street. So like every day for lunch, I got a whole pizza, which was pretty much like what the Domino's medium pizzas are, stuff like that. So I would get a whole pizza, fully loaded. And then while I was waiting on that to be done, I'd go across the street. I'd get 2 Big Macs, a large order of fries, a large vanilla milkshake. And then I'd come back, I'd get my pizza, and I'd go sit in my truck and eat all that stuff, fall into a carb coma for about a half an hour.
Yeah.
And then get up and go back to work.
Well, that's the thing too, right? It's like, I've talked about this with a few people. You got to have the meal before the meal because there's one meal that's you're waiting for. So now you got to have the other thing. Or in my situation, it was like, well, I'm going home to have my dinner, but on the way home, I got to have my 2 McDoubles with the Big Mac sauce on it. I got to have my 4-piece nugget, my medium chocolate shake. And that was to be on the way home and then have the real dinner when I get home.
Right. Yeah. The biggest thing for me, I think, the way now, knowing now what I didn't know then, the way my body can handle some foods, I don't think it was as much the gluttony as it was the soda. I used to drink Mountain Dew literally by the gallon.
Yeah.
It was nothing for me to stop and pick up 6 of the 1 liter Big Slam bottles of Mountain Dew on my way to work, and they'd be gone by lunchtime.
Yeah.
So and I think that had a lot to do with it. And actually, I can show you because I got my little setup here. This is what I looked at like at 405 pounds, which was my top weight.
Yeah.
That was the weight I was at when I had my aha moment and wound up in Winchester Medical Center in a diabetic coma.
Wow.
Yep.
I will say in that picture though, because you're so tall, it seems like you might carry it better than somebody else who's shorter.
I did.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And that's why it didn't make sense to me when all this stuff happened. I mean, I knew I had the big beer belly and I knew
Sure.
I was overweight, but I was like, as active as I was and everything and the way I carried it, I didn't think it was an issue. And I actually rolled underneath the car to do an alignment one day, and they wound up having to send me out of there unconscious in an ambulance to the hospital because I was in a diabetic coma.
So that's when you went into the coma. And when was that again?
That was in 2007.
2007. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at work, you're under a car, and this goes down.
Right.
Jesus.
Exactly.
Man,
Yep.
and so you woke up from this. Did you wake up the same day, or did you wake up like a day or two later? Or
No, the same day,
Same
about
day.
7 hours later,
Okay.
I woke up and my wife and my kids were standing over me crying. And this doctor looked at me and he's like, "Look, dude, you're well over 400 pounds. At the very least, you're a type 2 diabetic if you're not insulin dependent now.
yeah,
If you don't change what you're doing and how you're living your life, you'll be dead in a year."
well, that's a hell of a wake up call, John.
Absolutely. Didn't take me long. I was like, ding, ding, ding. Okay, now what's next?
So when you get out of the hospital, are you like immediately right on it?
Pretty much the next day I made an appointment with the doctor.
Yeah.
Which that's actually kind of a funny story.
Tell me about that.
I go into this guy, he's a general practitioner.
Yeah.
And because I knew my mom was diabetic, she had died from complications of diabetes. So I knew that I had to intervene like really quick.
Right.
So I go see this doctor and he comes in and, he's probably about 5'2", 5'3". He was morbidly obese, had a smoker's cough.
Yeah.
And he sits down and I'm sitting there on the table or whatever. And he sits down and he's looking through all the papers that I just sat out there in his waiting room filled out. And he's like, "Oh, you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, huh?" "Yeah." "Oh, looks like you're having problems with your blood sugar, huh?" "Yep." He's like, "You'll be lucky to hit 50," and walked out.
Wow.
That was my office visit with this guy.
No directives, no nothing.
No. Now, granted, I think that he wanted me to like go out and see his receptionist to make a follow-up appointment
Sure.
or maybe see some referrals or something like that. But just because of the way that he dealt with me, I was like, "Oh, hell no."
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So I was fortunate they had the town that I live in has a very good endocrinologist. So I got in touch with him and he had a waiting list for like 3 months. But he did go ahead and write me a prescription for some diabetic meds to get on to try to lower the blood sugar. And, then I got in to see him. And I don't think it was my visit and his advice as much that struck home with me as the time that I spent with his dietitian that he had there on staff.
I see.
She lit a fire in me that made me want to learn as much as possible. I'll get it out here in a minute, as possible about what food does in the body.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's like, now back in 2007, there was still a lot of stuff on the internet, but it wasn't the resource that it is now.
Yep.
So, I was finding different tidbits and things of that nature. And one of the things that I came across was an article that explained that the more lean muscle tissue you have, the better your body is at metabolizing carbohydrates and things of that nature. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a big guy and I've always been strong. So, I need to move in this direction. So Now, mind you, in between all of this, I quit smoking. I had actually been without cigarettes for about 6 months. The day that I drove by a gym and said, you know what, I'm going to stop. And I joined the gym and never looked back. And then it led into a whole bunch of things like me getting certified as a nutritionist and a trainer, and me basically starting my mission to wipe out obesity and type 2 diabetes.
Right. So this path, this one meeting literally sets you up for the next 10 to 15 years of your life,
Indeed.
really.
Indeed. Because, and that's the thing, so many of my clients, they don't really grasp the concept of what protein does in the body, what fats do in the body, what carbohydrates do in the body. And once they start to grasp the concept and they realize, that you can have all you want of this, you have to kind of watch this, and you really need to watch this. Once they start to grasp those concepts and they look at their own life and their eating habits and what causes stress behaviors that might cause them to stress eat or overeat or just make bad food choices. Once they start to grasp all those concepts, they wind up actually being able to build a healthy lifestyle for themselves that's sustainable, because it's not a diet. Okay.
Yeah.
I hate the word diet. A good friend of mine said the first 3 letters in the word diet spell die.
That's right.
So, and that's my approach. That's how I deal with things. I work with people to educate them on what their issues are, help them work through them, and try to build a sustainable lifestyle so they can be healthy.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially right now with, Instagram, social media in general, there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation out there.
Yes.
There's this kind of preconceived notion, well, I'm just going to show up day one, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to cut back all this stuff, and I'm just going to go. And okay, well, in purpose in general, like when you're starting out, okay, yeah, you might see, a couple of pounds come off initially,
Sure.
Then it slows down a little bit, and you go back up a little bit. I mean, all these things are happening so that you really got to have the knowledge behind it. Something that I myself am still learning to this day, and I'm 3 years into this thing, and because I saw a great loss, and then slowly started to creep back up a little bit.
Yep, it happens. See, that's the thing. The hardest, it's not hard to lose weight.
Yeah.
A guy that I had on my podcast, I think he was on the 2nd episode. His name is Mike Gorman. They call him Gormy.
Oh yeah, he's been here.
Has he been there?
Yeah, I love him. Great guy.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
He says all the time, and I think that it's funny when he says it, but it's the truth. There is nobody I know that knows how to lose weight better than him.
Yeah.
Nobody, because he's done it. He lost it, he gained it back, and he lost it again.
Yep.
But losing weight isn't the key. And even weight in and of itself isn't the thing. I'm never going to be my lowest weight. Well, actually, hang on a second, and I will actually show you. Now, this is kind of like a pictograph of 2007, right. 2013 when I joined the gym, and that was the beginning of last year, okay, wow. 2019. So I'm always going to be a big guy.
Yep.
I have a fair amount of muscle mass. I'm never going to weigh 210, 220 pounds. Just not going to do it. What's important is to lose the body fat, because people do not realize what visceral fat, excess fat does to the body. It's just amazing. It puts so much stress on the internal organs. It ages them prematurely.
Yeah.
It brings on, so many things. 2.8 million people died last year from causation of obesity, whether it was through diabetes, heart disease, and all these different things that were brought on because they were obese.
That's
and people
insane.
are worried about COVID.
Yeah. Think about that for a minute, folks that are listening.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a gym owner today because I saw his doors was open. I stopped by to see if they were opening back up, and he's like, no. And he was talking about the whole COVID thing and everything. And don't get me wrong, I firmly believe that a lot of the steps that have been taken to deal with COVID are a good thing, because it does spread faster than the flu.
Yeah.
And, nobody wants to create unnecessary loss of life. But when you look at last year, 60,000 people died from the flu. Just the flu, 60,000 people died. I don't think we've had 60,000 people yet die from COVID. But 2.8 million died because they were obese. Come on.
And we don't take it seriously.
We don't. You want to shut down the damn government? You want to shut down the world? Shut down the donut factories and all these other places that are putting all this crazy shit in food that is just like nuts. It's not. I'm sorry. I get a little flustered because
you're fine.
It's a truly passionate thing for me because it aggravates me so much.
They need to shut down this McDonald's down here on the street corner next to my house.
Exactly. Unless they're going to improve the quality of their beef, throw their buns out the damn door, start wrapping everything in lettuce, put some actual hard cheese on their burgers rather than that yellow gunk that they put on that shit now.
Yeah.
That is. It's formulated to melt fast. That's all it is. But it's gunk.
You think about it, John. We ate that shit every day for years. Can you believe that?
Dude, I did. I would love to have $1 for every $1 cheeseburger I ate from McDonald's. When they come out with the $1 cheeseburger,
yeah,
I was like, holy shit! I'd roll through the drive-thru and get like a dozen of them damn things.
My buddies and I, we would sit around and play PlayStation and have just a bag just full of them and just passing them around.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes to show you, because anybody will tell you when you go from a lifestyle like I used to live and like a lot of people live these days, you go from that to eating healthy, dude, you want to talk about hitting you in the wallet.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive to eat healthy.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, but also, I mean, even the fast food in general, obviously a lot of it's cheap, but when you think about the quantities, I mean, how much money you think you spent just in a year on fast food alone? Yeah.
I'd like to have some of that back for sure.
Hell yeah.
I'd like to have some of it back. Not only because if I did, I probably wouldn't have eaten all that stuff and I wouldn't have wiped out my health there for a time like I did, but not only that, I could take that money and invest it in my business and spreading my message, Exactly.
So you get out of the hospital, you have a meeting with the doctor, you have a meeting with the dietitian. Talk to me about the transition, though, because it doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just say, well, fuck it, the next day we're eating lettuce sandwiches or whatever. Like, talk about, and this is where I'm going with this, the mental aspect, because I talk a lot about the mental game. I think this is one of the most important aspects. Talk about that mental transition from the guy who was eating those pizzas and Big Macs every day to the guy that's now got to get his life on track. Tell me about that transition period.
Okay. Well, but to be honest, after meeting with the dietitian, obviously I did something that I never did before, which was I started to pay attention to the food labels.
Yeah.
And once I started paying attention to the food labels, I realized just how much protein I was getting a day, how much fat I was getting a day, how many carbohydrates I was getting a day. And one of the things that I did, the first thing that I did was I quit drinking Mountain Dew. I switched from Mountain Dew to Diet. I think the first thing I drank was Sprite Zero. And from there I moved on to Diet Coke, and now I just don't even drink. I drink very little soda at all. But anyway, just cutting out the soda and stopping the gluttony. Okay. I still ate Big Macs for lunch.
Sure.
But one day I would eat the pizza and one day I would eat the Big Macs. I gave up the shakes and started drinking diet soda with my food. But just cutting out the bulk of the soda and slowing down, not being a glutton, I lost 100 pounds in a year.
See, I like what you said there, because you didn't just come on here and say, well, one day I was eating the pizzas and the Big Macs every day, and the next day I'm eating the lettuce, whatever. You're still eating this stuff, but you're eating less of it. And it's very similar to what I did, where like one of my nighttime meals we would have at home here is turkey burgers. And that was even before I started losing weight. I always loved turkey burgers, the flavor. But I used to have 2 of them with the mashed potatoes and the green beans and all that stuff. And then one time I just started doing 1 of them. And then slowly but surely I got rid of the bun. Then I put it in a wrap, and then I started eating it with just the burger, because I was just trying to mentally change the habit and the expectation of what I was going to have. And so when you said that hit me so big. So I was like, I love that. And I think that's more important for people to hear, because a lot of people, they think when they start this thing, they just have to go cold turkey everything. And that's just simply not the case.
Exactly. The fact of the matter is this, Gary, and you touched on it a couple times, and I'm going to try to give you like the bullet point of how I feel about this.
Right.
The most important muscle that you can exercise to create a healthy lifestyle, it's right here.
Oh yeah.
It's right here. Because here's the thing. You were exactly right. So many people are like, look at New Year's, for example.
Yep.
Okay. New Year's Eve rolls around. You know what? Tomorrow I'm going to start eating right. I'm going to start going to the gym. And they do all these things. They put all this stuff together and they try to do it all at once and they never make it. They never sustain it. Okay. It needs to be because it's a lifestyle change, and it's the only way it's going to be successful as a lifestyle change. Because that's what it is. It has to happen gradually. It's not going to happen overnight. I didn't get to 400 pounds overnight, and I'm damn sure not going to lose it in a night.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what people need to get in their head. I have one client that I'm working with now, and he has sort of a defeatist attitude. He's going into everything thinking that he's going to fail. Okay. Because he's tried diets before. Right. And he's always failed on the diets because he's like, I don't have the willpower. I can't do this because the diets are basically requiring too much from it. So I spend a lot of time, he's texting me all the time or calling me or whatever. I spend a lot of time supporting him emotionally. It's not about, he already has his nutrition plan. He already has his workout plan. Where I'm his coach now is being there for the moral support and saying, hey, dude, it's okay. He called me the other day. He's like, dude, they're having a office party for this guy that's retiring and there's ice cream cake. Holy shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
I said, run, you stupid fucker, run. That's what I told him, because it's like, you don't need to eat it.
Yep.
So just walk away from it. It's not like you don't know. And the cake does not have any power over you. Nobody has the power to put that cake in your mouth except for you.
That's true.
You know? So, but that's it. I mean, so we kind of got off on a tangent there, but yeah, I mean, that was for the first year, it was slowing down on the food and then, cutting out the sodas.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, I kind of hovered there for a while. I bounced back and forth. My weight went up and down. And as that one picture showed, in 2013, I had got, all told, before I started a gym, I had lost 135 pounds.
Wow.
And that was just from changing my diet.
That's huge.
Then I had gained weight, or I went through a couple years where I had gained weight again, and I was back up to 329 pounds. And that's when I was driving by a gym and I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop because this has got to change. I had already quit smoking them because I had thought about going to a gym before then, but I was like, I smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. What the hell am I going to do in a gym? Yeah. But once I got off the cigarettes, I was like, okay, well, now it's time. And then it was just full bore from there.
Now, was that one of the holdups of going to the gym? The thought of, hey, because I'm a smoker, I'm probably going to gas out really quickly. Was there other emotional issues with going to the gym, or was it solely just the smoking?
No, it was just that I just thought that I wasn't ready, because when I was in school, I lifted weights. It was part of, I was a wrestler in high school.
Oh, cool.
And it was one of those things that if you were on the wrestling team, you had to be in weightlifting class. Yeah. And I loved lifting weights. So, but I hadn't done it since I was 16 years old. But I knew that I needed to start exercising and get back in the gym. But I just kept telling myself, I'm like, I'm smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I'm still not in the best shape. And I'm not getting any younger. I was 43.
Yeah.
So I just held off and held off and held off. But once I quit the smoking, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, because I was in a situation where my blood sugars still weren't where I wanted them to be.
Right.
So I figured that was the next logical step.
Well, and the smoking too, just to circle on that for a moment, I know I haven't personally smoked, but my mother smoked for years, and she just finally quit like this year. I'm so proud of her. And so tell me a little bit about your own process, because I want to learn from somebody else that's gone through it, what it was like to quit smoking and how truly difficult that can be for somebody.
Well, I'm not a real good person to tell you that, Gary, and
Fair enough.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I'm one of these people, and I've always been this way. Like, I started drinking alcohol when I was very young. I was 13 years old. I was already 6 foot tall at 13, and I was a big guy, so I was going in bars and getting served. Um, and I drank really heavy up until I was about 22, 23 years old when my oldest son was born. When he was born, the day he was born, I said, "That's it, I'm done," and I never drank again. So smoking for me, it was like, okay, I knew smoking was more of a physical addiction. So when I decided to quit, I got on Chantix. And of course, they tell you the first week, smoke regularly. The second week, cut your smoking in half. And then like by the third week, you were supposed to not smoke and just let the stuff do its job.
Yep.
At the beginning of week 2, I threw the Chantix and the cigarettes in the trash and never looked back.
Wow. It was that effective.
I'm just that way. It's a mental thing with me. When I decide I'm going to do something, I flip the switch in my head and I'm going.
That's it.
That's just how I am. And I know that most people have a lot of difficulty quitting smoking.
Yeah.
But the first thing, and it's smoking, but it's about more than smoking. It's weight loss, anything that you want to do. If you want to change your life and start a whole new career or start a business for yourself or whatever, it's a mindset. And you just have to say, this is what I'm doing, and go.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
When you go into the gym, where do you start out? Because, a lot of people, they either go right for the weights or go right for the cardio. Do you know in your mind, hey, I need a good balance of each, or do you start on one thing? How does that work out for you?
Well, in my case, because I'm because I'm certified and this is kind of what I do for a living, I myself, and I tell all my clients, when you go into the gym, unless you have a physical job and you're going in there at the end of the day, your muscles are relatively cold. They're not ready to be worked out.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to raise your core temperature. You need to get the blood pumping through the muscles, the synovial fluid pumping through the joints. So do 10 minutes of cardio. Nothing heavy. Get on an elliptical and go real slow. Get on a bike, get on a treadmill and walk. It doesn't matter. Something to elevate your heart rate, raise your core temperature, and get the fluids moving. And then I typically hit the weights. And then once my weight session is done, I'm hitting at least 20 minutes of cardio at the end.
Yeah. And so when you got started at the gym yourself, though, this is what you were doing?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like when you first got started, where's the mindset?
I learned through trial and error and my studies. When I first went into the gym, I just went at it like I was that same 15-year-old kid in the gym and after wrestling class. And I went in and I lifted with my ego, and I actually wound up tearing my long head biceps tendon and my rotator cuff. Because I could move weight. I've always been strong. Yeah. Even when I was 400 pounds, I was strong. I mean, I worked as a mechanic, and I would pick up transmissions and engine blocks and just carry them around and be like, where you want them.
Yeah.
But I went in and I didn't know about form. I didn't know about the biomechanics. I didn't know about kinesiology and all these different things that I know about now. So it was a lot of trial and error. That rotator cuff cost me 8 months in a recliner.
Damn.
Because it was literally torn in 3 different places. So I had to have surgery, and then I just had to do nothing but sit around. But other than that, it's just been a slow process of learning. And then when I decided that I wanted to get certified, and I started, going through all the course material and things like that, it seriously opened my eyes.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I want to go next. It's a great transition. It's almost like you do this for a living, podcasting and stuff. This is a perfect transition. I love it.
Well, I do have a podcast.
Tell me about that real quick.
There in the background.
Yeah, tell me about. We'll sidebar there real quick, and then we'll go into getting started with the certification.
Okay. The Jacked Up podcast. I decided that I wanted to start a podcast because my YouTube channel, I was doing informational type talking head videos where, I talk about a few things and throw some B-roll in there and then, go to the next topic. But it just, I don't like doing it. I don't enjoy it at all. I much prefer a setting like this where I'm talking to somebody.
Yep.
I like organic conversation. All those videos seem too damn scripted for me. So I decided I was going to start a podcast, and I'm a resident coach in a Facebook group called the Dad Bod Transformation Group. Right now, we just went over 30,000 members.
Wow.
And I actually started doing a podcast on their YouTube channel, interviewing some of the people that have had like real big transformations. Some of the other resident coaches, there's 3 other resident coaches besides me. Between the 4 of us, there's over 50 years experience coaching in there. The what I call the leader of the pack, his name is Matt Griffiths. He has coached people like Dwayne Johnson, Eddie Hall, the world's strongest man. And he's a champion power lifter himself. So, but yeah, that's how I got started in the whole podcasting thing. And I put a post in that group. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a podcast, but I need to come up with a name. Well, my initials are JAK. So one of the members was like, let's do the Jacked Up podcast. I was like, cool, let's go. Sat down because I do a little graphic design. I made the logo, put together the little intro video, and I'm like, okay, let's go.
I love that.
Here we are.
And how long you been doing the podcast now?
Just a few months, actually.
Nice.
Yep, just a few months, and I'm actually this will be 9 weeks actually, because I'm shooting episode 9 about an hour after I get done talking to you.
Oh, dude, I got to tell you, you're in this at the perfect time, because now the barrier to entry with podcasting is it's so much more welcoming than it was 13 years ago, where I used to call with a telephone to a website called Blog Talk Radio. The quality was horrible. It was like 32 kbps, really low quality, but you had a chat room, you had a phone number to call, and you were talking live to people. It was fun. Now you can pull out cameras, you can go on YouTube, you can do all these kind of things. So this is an exciting time to jump in. I think you're in at the right time.
Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I actually just hooked up with a new resource. And I don't know if there's any more out there. If there is, you can tell me later when we're done.
Okay.
But I found this website called matchmaker.fm.
Okay.
It's a new site that just recently launched. And it's a site for shows to find guests and guests to find shows.
Perfect.
And, it's like in the last 2 days, I have agreed to go on 3 different podcasts, and I've picked up 12 guests for mine.
I need to check out this site. Good Lord.
Dude, I'm telling you, check it out, because it's awesome, and it's just getting started.
Yeah. I need to get on there. Because what I do right now is I just go on Instagram. Here's the thing. It's kind of a joke. People kind of say, ha ha, in the intro, where I'm the introvert who talks to strangers on the internet, but it's true. Right. It's difficult for me sometimes in face-to-face settings just to communicate with people, because I get very nervous. I get very shy. Right. So this gets me out of that zone. And so just going on Instagram, that's how I was doing it, getting people, and I'd schedule them. Like right now, this podcast, people are hearing this in June, but we're recording it in April. I think it's great to batch ahead because hearing people's stories, it's very evergreen content. I think it's, it's timeless. You can hear anybody's story at any point, and it can still resonate with you, whether it's now or 5 years from now. It's the same thing. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of the people, like when I found you, one of the first things I did when we started talking about me coming on your show was I went back to like your first 10 episodes and listened to them all.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying? Because I love it. But I guess the thing that really resonates with podcasting with me is because you're probably old enough to remember. You may not be, but you may be. When the CB radios were big.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
I used to talk shit to some truckers.
Man, well, yeah, I did a lot of that when I was real young. But no, I seriously got into CB radio. I used to work with a volunteer organization called React. Yeah. We would monitor Channel 9 for emergencies and relay the information to the police. I talked to people all over the world. Dude, I literally had a mobile CB and a house antenna that I would mount down in one of the holes in the back of my pickup truck, and I'd drive to the top of the mountain here in West Virginia. Yeah. And I'd talk to people in Australia, all over the place.
That's wild.
So I've always loved to do that type of stuff. And then in my early adult years, I was a DJ for a lot of years. So having a microphone in front of me has never bothered me. So I guess the two things combined and being able to talk to people, the hardest part for me was getting over the camera.
Yeah.
That was me. But now I've gotten to the point, I've done so many live videos on Facebook and stumbled over my tongue and everything else, and kind of felt like shit and like, man, you're an idiot. You know, I've just gotten to the point I just turn the camera on and go, and I don't even worry about it anymore.
Yeah, I'm still getting over that part. The audio's never been a problem, really. It's more the video, but slowly but surely, just with anything, you just eventually evolve with it and you figure it out.
You just got to do it, man. You just got to do it.
Speaking of just got to do it, you want to talk about some of these certifications and stuff. So you are, we'll go back to a few years ago. You're on your journey. You're getting your body together. You're getting your nutrition together. But I'm assuming that along this road, you're also taking the time to read and research and figure out all these things to get ready for the certifications.
Absolutely. Well, actually, the reading and everything before I actually started the certification process had nothing to do with getting the certifications.
Right.
I decided to get certified because I got to a point where I was helping so many people already, you know, just by my own experiences and sharing my story and things of that nature, that I wanted to do it on a more broad base. And that meant, you know, going into the online space and whatnot.
Yep.
And although there are I'm not going to name names, but I can think of two huge fitness and nutrition influencers on Instagram. Neither one of them have a certification, and they got over 1 million followers.
Yep.
And there is something to be said for anecdotal information. However, science is science. You know, I deal with it all the time in the dad bod group on Facebook. I get these people to come in here and they start touting all this stuff. And it's like, I had one guy come in the group one time and he's like, well, everybody says that carbs are evil. Carbs won't turn you fat. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Break it down, the macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbs. If you eat too much protein, what are you going to do? You're going to sit on a commode the next day. That's what you're going to do. If you eat too much fat, same damn thing. Well, what happens if you eat too many carbohydrates? Your body can't eliminate it. It gets transferred to the liver, lipogenesis happens, and it turns it to triglycerides and fat, and they get stored on your body, which is why obesity leads to type 2 diabetes, because it's a vicious cycle. The more fat you have, the less insulin sensitive you are. And the more sugar that you eat, the more fat you get. And if you're insulin resistant, the insulin can't take the sugar out of your bloodstream. So it's a vicious cycle. Every bit of 90% of people that are obese have type 2 diabetes, or at very least pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
And the only thing that does that is carbohydrates. But this guy wanted to sit there and argue this stuff with me. And I'm like, dude, even if I didn't have a certification, I've read enough stuff on PubMed that I will literally bury you in this conversation. So, you know, and it just irritates me. And that's why I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be taken seriously, I need to have my certifications as well. So that's why I went ahead and got certified.
Fair enough. But also I would think, you know, being diabetic, you wanted to know as much as you could possibly know. So like you said, before all the certifications, you were doing the research because you really wanted to know what made all this stuff tick, what made everything work.
Yep, exactly. And that was the thing. I'll never forget the day I went into my doctor's office and she said, you know what? You don't have to be on diabetic medicine anymore. Right. You don't have to be on any kind of blood pressure medicine, which I've never had issues with blood pressure, but a lot of diabetics, they will give you blood pressure medicine to protect your kidneys from the effects of the diabetic medicine. Okay. You know, these ASO inhibitors, they actually help to excrete hormones and different enzymes and whatnot that'll protect your kidneys. So they took me off the blood pressure medicine, took me off the diabetic medicine. I was never on cholesterol medicine. And they were like, you know, you're doing good. Just go do you.
Yeah. Just do you. I mean,
yeah, but that's what it was all about. It was all about, I was constantly learning because I wanted to get healthier and healthier. I knew what long-term medication use for diabetes does. Okay. Right. I've seen it. Most of my family members, especially on my mom's side, either had type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And I've seen what happens over time. It's hard on their kidneys. You know, it's hard on the capillaries, blood vessels and whatnot in their eyes and stuff like that. I was literally like, I'm not going out like that.
Yeah. I mean, why deal with that? Why live a life on medicine?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole point is to
Exactly.
get off the medicine. I mean, when I was a big guy, my biggest thing was my legs and my shins and my knees and everything were in pain from pretty much from the waist down and sometimes in the back too. But I was living on like ibuprofen every day, like 800 milligrams every single freaking day, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And while that may reduce inflammation, it tears your stomach up. Not to mention it does a lot of other things when you're taking it on a regular basis in the body. Now, don't get me wrong, I still take a lot of pills every day.
Yeah.
But it's supplements. I take I take all kinds of supplements, but it's because I'm trying to get the most performance out of my body. When the gyms are open and I go to the gym, any given day I go to the gym, I'm working twice as hard as guys half my age in there, and they're sitting there on their machines, twiddling on Twitter, going, damn, what's that dude doing over there? You know what I mean? And it's because what going to the gym means to me is a whole lot different than what it means to somebody else.
I'm amazed at the amount of phone playing that goes on in the gym now. I mean, I see it so much, and sometimes you're waiting for a machine and somebody's just sitting there just playing around.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I use my phone in the gym, but I'm tracking my workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I use there are several different tracking apps that I use depending on what it is that I'm doing during that particular workout. And if I'm picking up my phone, that's what it is. I'm tracking my workout.
Definitely. And so you get the certification. You talked about even before getting the certification, how much you were helping people. And so when does this desire come into your mind? Like, I want to help people. This needs to be now a business where I can take it on a big scale and help people.
Actually, it was a lot of downtime.
Okay.
Last year, up until last year, for a few years, I worked in a factory as a machine operator. And that particular job was 12 to 16 hours a day, nonstop walking between. I ran two machines at the same time. So I'd go to one machine, do something, come back to the other one. And then, it was like after my shift, I'd hit the gym for 2 hours a day. Then I'd come home, get up, and do it all over again. Well, I wound up tearing the meniscus in my left knee. I was I was coming around the corner of one of the machines and my body went one way, my knee went the other. So I wound up having to have surgery to have that replaced. Well, while that was going on and while I was going through the rehab, I was relying a lot on my right knee. And I had surgery back in the 80s from a construction accident where most of my ligaments and tendons were torn.
Right.
So anytime they go in and they do any kind of joint work, when you get older, you're going to develop arthritis. It's just the nature of the beast. It's how it works. And I did not realize, and neither did my doctor at the time, that there was so much arthritis in my right knee that inside of 3 months of rehab for my left knee, it shredded all the cartilage and I was literally bone on bone.
Wow.
It was to the point where I couldn't spend more than an hour on my feet without my knee swelling up to the size of a grapefruit. Okay. So pretty much from April of last year with the two knee surgeries, because in December I had a full knee replacement. Okay. So from April of last year to January 22nd, I was released to go back to the gym. I was totally inactive. So during that time, I was sitting around one day and I was actually studying for my certifications because I decided to go ahead and get certified as a nutritionist first. I was studying, I was listening to a podcast, and I believe it was Mark Sisson, the guy that started Primal Kitchen.
Okay.
He was on a podcast with Tom Bilyeu, one of the co-founders of Quest Nutrition. And he was saying, look, it's real simple. If you want to help people, find the world's biggest problem, and you'll find the world's biggest opportunity to help people, but you'll also find the world's biggest business opportunity. And that hit me. That hit me right between the eyes like a brick. And I immediately picked up my phone and I was like, Google, how many people in the world today have type 2 diabetes? 280 million at that point in time. And of those 280 million, 70 million were undiagnosed. 13 million of them were children.
Wow.
I was like, there it is. So I immediately went to my laptop and went to GoDaddy.com and I was like, T2 Nutrition. The domain was available. I bought the domain. I sat down, I designed the logo that night, and I started building everything from there. And I'm still got a long way to go, but you know what? I'm gonna get there because I'm determined. I'm not going to stop. You're going to find me on Instagram. You're going to find me on Twitter. You're going to find me with my podcast on YouTube and all the audio outlets because I'm going to get my message out there one way or another.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I think that's so strong. You mentioned the graphic design a little bit. Just a quick sidebar. When did you get into the graphic design work?
Actually, it's kind of funny. When I quit working as a mechanic,
Yeah.
back in 2009, my wife at the time, her and I had a handicapped child, and we were in a situation where we had to determine which one of us was better suited to stay home and take care of her. And of course, it was me. So my wife worked outside the home, and I actually taught myself how to do both web design and graphic design.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the days where I think there was a company, I want to say it was Total Training, but I could have been wrong. They had all these tutorials about how to use Adobe products. And I got hooked. And next thing you know, I was developing Flash websites for people and all this other stuff. I did that for a number of years until the market fell out where everybody could just go on this website and for $9.99 a month, we'll build you a website, and you can't compete with stuff like that.
Right. Where does I guess the interest come in? Because this is before you're building your business and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Where you were just like, hey, I'm interested in wanting to build websites.
Yeah, I've always had a creative side to me. When I was young, I used to draw a lot.
Yeah.
Typical boy stuff, superhero characters and things
Yeah.
like that. So I would play around with that. A lot of geometric shapes and stuff I like to draw, and I like to skew them and things like that. So I guess I just had a penchant for it. And then, when I got into positions where it was like when I started designing websites, I'm like, okay, well, that's great. I can design these websites. I can do the HTML. I can do the CSS, but I need a logo to put on the website.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to pay somebody else to do the logo. I'm going to figure out how to do it myself because that's just how I am.
Yeah.
So, and that's what led to it all.
For me, tell me if you're similar. For me, I have to see like a logo of something before I truly feel like I know what the vision is. Like, in other words, like I had a wrestling podcast once and a wrestling website in mind, and I had the name, but
Right.
it was when I saw the logo that I truly felt the vibe of the brand. Is that similar for you? Does the logo speak to you in that way?
Similar. Yep. Like my current logo, T2 Nutrition, for T2 Nutrition and Wellness. It's a circle, and the circle's broke up into 4 segments, and there's 4 different colors. And then there's a T2N, which are kind of like in like a 2D or a 3D cube.
Right.
I designed that every color in that, with the exception of the black, obviously, is a color from a food group.
Oh,
Like
cool.
kiwi, banana, strawberry, tangerine, stuff like that, because I wanted to make sure that everything could be traced back to nutrition.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I literally sat down and in a day designed that logo.
That is awesome. So tell me, we were talking earlier about how COVID-19 and everything's come up, and I wanted to know how. I mean, you mentioned kind of earlier how the business it's affected you, but like, how are you processing this whole thing mentally?
Well, from the aspect of my fitness and being able to go to the gym, it kind of drives me a little crazy. I don't have any gym equipment here at the house, and I do body weight exercises. I do push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that. Obviously, with knee replacement, I am not doing squats at this point in time.
Yeah, yeah.
They actually recommend. Now I could leg press. Since I had my knee replacement surgery before the gyms closed down, I mean, I was back up to leg pressing 700 pounds.
Nice.
So, for a guy that's 53 years old and had a knee replacement like 3 months prior, I didn't think that was too bad. But now it's like there isn't a whole lot I could do other than climb steps. If it was still wintertime, I'd be outside chopping wood.
Yeah.
But, I don't have that. So it kind of wears on me a little bit, but I'm just pouring all my focus into creating content, because I figure if I'd rather spend my time, I think my time is going to be more productive in working on producing content than it is to just sit around and mope because I can't get in the gym and lift weights.
Fair enough. By the way, you mentioned 53. You look like early to mid 40s. Honestly, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass.
No, yes, sir. I was born in January 26, 1967. I'm 53 years old.
Do you get that a lot, though? Do people tell you look younger than what you are? Yeah.
They didn't before I shaved my head. Because I'll tell you, my forehead stopped like right here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and I had long hair for the longest time. I had hair down the middle of my back. But so I kind of looked like a pencil with the eraser bit off, and I decided that I was going to just shave my damn head and get it over with. And ever since then, I mean, before I grew the beard out, when my beard was short, I used to get people come up in the gym saying that I looked like Stone Cold Steve Austin or Goldberg.
Yep.
So that was always really cool. And I actually, side note, now that I'm thinking about that, you were going to do a wrestling podcast?
I used to do one. I did one from 2007 to 2010. I took a little break. I came back in 2013. I did it for a few more years. So, yeah, I've done it a couple times. Yeah.
We should get together and do some podcasts on wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick little story.
Yeah.
Back when my hair was long and I just had the goatee, I had the leather coat, the hat and all. And I used to go to parties and I had this casket that had smoke machine nozzles that came up through the bottom, and I would actually do the whole Undertaker entrance.
Oh, that is so awesome.
with the coat and the music and the whole works. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah, we should definitely do some of that.
You look like the kind of guy where you probably beat the hell out of a guy like Braun Strowman. I like to see the two of you guys lock heads.
I don't know, man. Braun's a pretty big dude. He's kind of strong too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a strong guy, but I am 53 with bad knees too. So let's put it this way. If I get him down on the ground, I'm going to beat the hell out of him. How's that?
I love it.
Man.
You've been amazing with your time. Before we wrap it up here, tell me some of your goals in the next couple of years. What are you looking to do? What are you working on? I know you mentioned creating content, but what are some of your kind of goals going in the next couple of years here?
Well, obviously, first and foremost is to get my message out there. Obesity is a killer, plain and simple. And, more people need to realize it and recognize it, and more needs to be done around that. So that's the main goal, is to get my message out there. I'm a firm, but one of my favorite mentors is Tony Robbins.
Yep.
And he talks all the time about, if you're in business, don't worry about getting paid. Don't worry about the money. Just give. All you have to do is give. If you keep putting content out there and you keep helping people, eventually the money's going to come to you. So that's kind of my mindset. I'll guarantee you 2/3 of the clients that I have right now aren't even paying me my normal fees because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there are probably, just in that dad bod group alone, there are probably 50, 60 guys that I'm mentoring right now for free and helping them with nutrition advice, with workout advice and things like that, because I just want to give. I'm not in this to get rich. I want to make a living and I want to help as many people as possible. So, I can see, obviously, the podcast, I want to see it get big. Maybe at some point in time, I'm actually working on a supplement company right now. I have one, and it has one product, which is exogenous ketones for people that are on a ketogenic diet or not. That's a big misconception. You can actually use exogenous ketones even if you're eating carbohydrates.
Okay.
They're an excellent fuel source. So I want to expand that line, 20, 30 products, everything all natural, high efficacy stuff. But it's all about getting myself out there in the health and fitness space, because the more people know me, somewhere along the line, the more I can touch their lives and help them in one way or another.
I love that. So with that being said, there's no better way to wrap this up than to let me help you as much as I can by telling me everywhere people can go. Let's get them to everywhere you need them to go, and so they can hear this message and check it out.
Absolutely. Well, my YouTube channel is T2 Nutrition and Wellness. That's the video home of the Jacked Up podcast. You can also find that on all the audio outlets as well. I actually, I know that you're a big supporter of Anchor.fm.
Yep.
That's who I use to host the audio portions of my podcast. On Instagram, I'm T2 Nutrition and Wellness. Facebook, T2 Nutrition, I believe it's T2 Nutrition or T2 Nutrition and Wellness. I don't remember, but if you put in T2 Nutrition, you'll find me. Twitter is at Wellness T2. Instagram T2 Nutrition and Wellness. I'm everywhere, dude.
And did you put out the .com, your main website?
Oh no, T2 Nutrition and Wellness.com.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll make sure to drop all that in the notes in the YouTube, the podcast notes, everywhere that this is at. I'll make sure that all those links are in the notes for you there, buddy.
That's awesome, man. I sure do appreciate it.
I appreciate it, John. It's been a great conversation for a couple guys that have never talked before other than a couple of DMs. I thought this was a pretty fun conversation, and I look forward to more.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah. I'm sure we'll be talking quite a bit.
Definitely. Well, Absolutely. Thank you for the time. Have a great night.
Welcome.
Stay safe out there, man.
Absolutely. You too.
All right, brother. Take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks again, John, for coming on the show. T2 Nutrition and Wellness, the Jacked Up Podcast. Go follow it everywhere that you can. Check out the links in the description. Before I get out of here, I want to make this perfectly clear because I have been getting requests for it, and it's finally here. Many of you have said, Gary, the weekly Wednesday podcast, when can we have this on video? It's done. It's happening. This podcast that you just listened to, available on video. Next week's podcast, available on video. The one after that, and the one after that, available on video. That's right. Each and every weekly Wednesday podcast, in addition to the Saturday podcast, which is every podcast here on the Gary Cantrell podcast, it will now be in video. I'm so happy to take this leap into the digital world of YouTube and Facebook Watch and IGTV. We're doing it all. We're doing it big. We're leveling up in a major way. And I want to thank you guys so much for requesting it. It's something that I've been wanting to do, but I've been too scared to do. I've had this fear of doing it. And now, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And my God, I talked so damn long that the song freaking ran out. Would you believe that? My goodness. Ugh. Well, there you go. The song's over. That means, Gary, it's time to get your ass out of here. I'll be back next week with another podcast, audio and video. You can check it all out. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll talk to you next time. See ya.